Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing an ocean painting, so let's do it. Okay, so to start, I'm just going to go through my materials. I have a piece of Arches watercolor paper taped just to a cardboard piece. I taped it down because we're going to be wetting the whole area and we don't want the paper to warp or buckle, so that's why I did that. I have my Winsor Newton Cotman watercolors. I have 3 brushes with me. I have a mop brush, which isn't necessary. You could just use a really big brush, but this is just to lay down a bunch of water. I have that, and then I have my Princeton snap brushes in a size 16 and a size 4. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna be doing some wet on wet technique. You just take your big brush and you're just gonna lay down a bunch of water, okay? So you wanna try and get the right amount of water, not where if you were to tilt it, it's dripping everywhere, okay? So if you were to pick it up, you don't want a bunch of water running off the page, but you wanna see that kind of nice shine to it, a sheen, okay? So that you know where you've put your water. Okay, so once we have coated it in water, again, not too much water, you can always dry off your brush and then just go over it just to make sure you don't have too much water. You're gonna take a light brown or a yellow ochre color. So I'm gonna take some yellow ochre here. And a bit of my burnt umber. And I'm just going to lay it down at the bottom here. Okay, and this is gonna be the sand. A bit more brown to it. Okay. And then I'm gonna do my water. So here I have turquoise. I just already have some leftover blue here. And I'm gonna take some Viridian and mix it together to get a nice deep sea color. And I'm gonna lay it down on this side. And now I want it to be lighter gradually as it gets closer to the sand. So I'm just gonna wash off my brush. So it has a bit of blue and I'm just gonna drag it down. Okay, again, I don't want them to necessarily mix. So I'm just gonna wash off my brush. I'm gonna dry it this time so I'm not adding too much water, and I'm just gonna kind of go over the 2 colors together. Okay, but you gradually want it to get darker than this. So we're gonna keep adding some darkness, especially to this side, the end here. I might even add some indigo. Is that indigo? No, that was Payne's Gray. Okay, I gotta know which ones are my colors. I just really wanna add some darkness at the top here, because the further away the sea is from the sand, the darker it is. And my son's crying. He'll go back to sleep. His nap just started. Okay, now the trick with this is try not, every time you add more paint, you don't want to add too much water, right? So just make sure you have a good amount of paint on there and not just like overloading it with water. So you might want to switch to a smaller brush just to add some more. Okay, just gonna try and bring that color down and blend it a bit. And then just to make sure this hasn't dried, I'm just gonna add a bit more color to the sand too. Make it a bit darker over here. And to gradually change a color to a bit lighter, remember, wash off your brush. You might wanna use 2 jars of water too for this, because if you mix the brown and the green, you might get some of the greenish blue in the sand, which you don't necessarily want. We'll go back to sleep, bud. Mom life, okay. His nap just started, so he will go back to sleep. Okay. Okay, so I still want it a bit darker up there. So I'm just gonna keep on adding color, okay? I know this might be a bit boring to watch this part, but I also switched to my other brush so I could pick up more paint. So so I can really get those dark colors in there. And that Viridian, if you don't have the Viridian color, you can always just mix some blue and green together to get that kind of sea green. Okay. Okay. Now I'm gonna wash off my brush, and where the water kind of meets the sand there, I am going to take some clean water and I am going to drop it there. When you drop just plain water on an area, it pushes the paint, the color away, and creates like kind of these white watermarks, which in a lot of paintings you don't necessarily want, but in this, it kind of works for those crashing waves right there. So not too much water, but just enough that you can bring some of that blue down too into it if you want. Just a little bit, like that. And then you can even do some of that to the waves coming in. Just add a bit of water, just clean water to your paintbrush. Now remember, if you're using a bigger brush, it's going to carry more water, so don't be surprised about the amount that's going to come on there. So you might want to use a smaller brush for this just until you get it. I kind of have a feel of how much water I have on my brush because I've done this many times. So just keep in mind, bigger brush holds more water, which means more water is going to end up on your paper. Okay, so I have used a lot of water. So it's kind of starting to drip into here and it's losing that sand. So I'm just going to dry off my brush, pick up some of that water, especially that's pooling towards the sides. And I'm just going to add more color here. Okay. I'm going to also add a bit more darkness there. Okay, so we're gonna let this dry, not completely. I'll show you kind of the level of dry you want it. You want it to just start drying because then you're gonna drop some more clean water on there and get those watermarks. Okay, so it doesn't completely work that way when it's semi-wet or really wet, sorry. You kind of want it to just start drying to get that effect. Hold on, I'm just gonna add a bit more. I'm gonna try it again. See if I can show you what I mean. Okay. Just drying off my brush, cleaning it up. Okay, so I'm gonna dry it a little bit with my my heat tool, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so I just dried it a bit. It's not completely dry by any means. Like if I still touch it, it's pretty wet. But now I'm just gonna take some clean water again and do those watermarks. Okay, and they come up a bit more when it's started to dry. Like that. Like that. Okay, so you might have to try this out a couple times just to test out where that level of dry and wetness is, if that makes sense, okay? And that's honestly about it. So I'm gonna come back and just show you what it looks like when it's completely dry, and I'll take the tape off. Okay, so now that it's dry, I'm actually just gonna go back in and add a bit more detail to some of the waves coming in over here. So I'm just gonna create some lines like this. I'm gonna wash off my brush, dry it a bit, and I'm just gonna blend that out so it's not a harsh line coming down. just to get some kind of wave texture. Okay. Like that. You can even do some on the lighter parts using lighter paint. So just using more water than paint. Okay, and I'm just going to clean up a bit here too. Just going to go over the sand because the water, that clean water that we put on started dripping down the sides and pushed some of the color away. So I'm just cleaning up those edges too. Also, if you have some white ink or white gouache, so I have Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White Ink. I'm going to take some of that. And I'm just going to add some detail of the crashing waves coming just over here where it's hitting the shoreline. Okay, maybe a bit up here too. Just using my brush. It's kind of dry, it's not too wet. I just wet the paint up a bit. To get that textured look for the waves. Okay, and there you go. And now we take the tape off. And there you go. There is your ocean painting. Thank you so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for more. Have a great day. Bye.